So let's get started. I will recap a little bit of what we discussed last week. So I would say I like to do 5 points on my recap. And the first thing that came to me was that I would say that the women that we've been studying had a healthier fear of God than the men. Because the men, it seemed like they would always make these decisions based on fear. And the women, although they were faced with the same uncomfortable possible situations, they did not respond out of fear. They responded out of reverence to their husband, and I would say also to God. So in like when the two guys, Isaac and Jacob, told their wives that, or I'm sorry, Isaac and Abraham told their wives to say that they were their sisters, to not get taken by Pharaoh, so they wouldn't get killed by Pharaoh. And then the women ended up getting taken by Pharaoh. And the scriptures don't say anything about them whining or complaining about it, just that they trusted and they had faith that all the things would work out well. The second point was when Jacob came to Isaac for a blessing, and he was asking for his soul to bless him. And I just wanted to touch a little bit on the soul and how important the soul is in our lives. I know we did mention that when God breathed on Adam, he became a living soul. And I want to touch on Psalms 103 and 146, where David says, "Praise the Lord, O my soul." So we're supposed to be the ones commanding our souls to praise the Lord. So the soul is a part of us that's created when, like Jeanette was talking about, the marriage that we have with God, when we consummate that marriage, that's what's created. When our energy and God's energy combine, the soul is created. And that's what Jacob was asking for, the blessing from Isaac. And remembering he stole that blessing technically from Esau, his brother. But as we also touched on, Isaac's not the one that really blesses, God is. And God said initially, that he was going to bless Jacob and not Esau. So, and then Rebecca was a product of her environment, as was Jacob. Can't read my own writing. Oh yeah, how Jacob didn't want to get caught, right? When they were planning the plot against Esau to steal the blessing, Jacob wasn't worried about doing what was right or wrong. He was worried about getting caught. And Rebecca also, she was, from all we could see, a great woman that watered all of the camels, and then she ended up being deceitful and deceiving her husband and her firstborn son. So oftentimes we can become a product of the environment that we're in. And the names have meanings. As we learn in the scripture, we mention all the different names. And it seems like the men's names might have more meanings, like to actively describe what they are and what they do in their life. So, and sometimes, as we saw with Hagar and Ishmael, the woman will name or the man will name the child based on what they're currently experiencing. So Ishmael is the God who hears, and she was heard by God. And then Jacob means trickster, and we can all see that he lives up to his name. And as I said, God is the one who blesses. So that brings us to our next study, which will be Rachel and Leah, and we are in Genesis 29. So this is where Jacob resumes his journey to go back to the land of his father, out of Canaan. It says it's east of Canaan. And one day Jacob, so this is verse 2, one day Jacob came out to a well out in the open country where the shepherds watered their animals. 3 flocks of sheep and goats were lying near the well, which had a large heavy stone covering the opening. Whenever all the flocks gathered there, the shepherds would roll away the stone from the mouth of the well, water their sheep, and then roll the stone back over the top of the well. Jacob approached them and said, "Good day, friends. Where are you from?" "We are from Haran," they answered. "Do you happen to know Laban, a grandson of Nahor?" "We do," they said. "How's he doing?" "He's doing well. As a matter of fact, here comes his daughter Rachel right now with her flock." Jacob said, "Look, it's not time for the animals to gather together here. It's now the hottest hour of the day. Let's go ahead and water the sheep. Then you can go and pasture them." So it was interesting to think that he was telling them to shoo because he's attracted to this young woman that's now approaching and knowing that she's his potential bride. So he's trying to get them out of the way, and remembering that this is, I think, his first cousin. And as we spoke about before, there was less corruption in the DNA and intermarrying was common. So he's looking at this woman as a potential bride. Another thing is he didn't know where he was until he asked. So there wasn't road signs, there wasn't like maps as we know them today that he could just look at and know where he was. So he had to ask someone. And also remembering that this trip took months, because this is where Isaac sent his servant to go get Rebecca. So this was a long trip that he was on, and he arrived here and had to ask where he was because there was no other way of knowing. So, and then verse 9 says, while they were still speaking, Rachel the shepherdess drew near to the well with her father's sheep. As soon as Jacob took one good look at Rachel, the daughter of his uncle Laban, he quickly went over to the mouth of the well and single-handedly rolled away the stone and watered all the flock of his uncle Laban. So that's interesting as well. So of course he's showing his strength, that he's a big, strong man, ready to provide for this young lady. And it's also a mirroring of what his mother did for his father's servant when he brought all of his camels there. So he waters all of Rachel's sheep. And immediately he walked up to Rachel and kissed her. So he didn't introduce himself. He didn't say, "Hello, I'm Jacob, your cousin, son of Isaac, son of Abraham," which was customary, right? When people introduce themselves, that's the way that they would introduce themselves, the son of this, son of that. So he didn't do any of this. So thinking again, putting ourselves in this woman's position. Although as a young lady, if you're doing all this hard work tending the sheep and you're like, all right, now I got to go water all these sheep, to have some strong, probably relatively handsome young man come and move the thing out of the way and water all your sheep, and probably bat his eyelashes at you, and then to swoop in and bend you over and give you a kiss. So I guess that it could be either way, that she was either appalled or smitten. So after, so immediately he kissed her, and then he wept aloud. He was just so grateful that, and some of the translations say she's also beautiful, which comes up later when they're describing Rachel versus Leah. So she's also a beautiful woman. And then after he composed himself, he explained, "I'm your father's nephew, your Aunt Rebecca's son." Upon hearing this, Rachel ran to tell her father. When Laban heard the news that his nephew Jacob had arrived at the well, he ran to greet him. Laban hugged and kissed Jacob and welcomed him into his home. After Jacob told him the story of all that happened, Laban said to him, "Certainly you are my own flesh and blood." Jacob stayed with him for an entire month and worked for him. So afterward, Laban said to Jacob, "Just because you're my relative doesn't mean I expect you to work for me for nothing. Tell me, what do you want for your wages?" This is after a month. So dude had already worked for him for a month. And then Laban decided to say, well, can I offer you some wages? So he already got a month of free labor out of this gentleman, and then says, well, I guess maybe I could pay you something. So verse 16, now Laban had 2 daughters. The older was Leah and the younger was Rachel. Rachel had a lovely figure and was gorgeous, but Leah's eyes were weak, or Leah was weak. So that goes again to the names where Leah actually means weak or delicate. And did I not look up what Rachel means? I don't think I did. That's okay. We'll do it next week.
Yeah, Rachel.
So Jacob had fallen in love with Rachel, so he answered Laban, I will serve you for 7 years for the hand of your daughter Rachel. Laban replied, I'd rather give her to you than to some other man. Stay and work for me. So Jacob served Laban for 7 years in exchange for Rachel, but because he loved her so deeply, the 7 years seemed like only a few days. It's so sweet. It's like a little love story. But as many love stories do, it takes a twist. After the 7 years, Jacob said to Laban, my time is fulfilled. Give me your daughter so that I may marry her and sleep with her. So Laban prepared a wedding feast and invited all the people of the surrounding area. So that's another thing that's interesting and contrary to our current society, where a lot of people will meet and then move in together before they get married. Where here, although he was very quick to kiss this young lady, they abstained from any further physical conduct until after the marriage, because they understood that having intercourse produces children, and that's a whole thing. And then there's also a lot of secrets and mysteries in having intimate relationships like that they were aware of and did not want to entangle themselves with other people outside of wedlock, which is a good practice. So that night, no, where are we? My time is fulfilled. Give me your daughter. Verse 21, that I may marry her and sleep with her. So Laban prepared a wedding feast and invited all the people of the surrounding area. That night, Laban tricked Jacob by bringing his older daughter Leah to Jacob's tent, and he slept with her on his wedding night. So he was probably intoxicated, and this lady comes in, and then that was what, as we recall from before, that was the marriage ceremony, essentially, was the consummation of these two people coming together. There wasn't anything necessarily other than the celebration. It's not like what we have now, where there's the whole saying vows and things. It was just a commitment between two families, usually just the parents of the two families, and then the consummation of the marriage was what took place to make man and wife. So he tricked her, and it says Laban assigned Zilpah to be Leah's servant, and Zilpah means trickling or drop or frailty. So interestingly enough, the trickster was tricked. I thought that was pretty witty. Again, God's funny and fun, and although I'm sure it wasn't fun for Jacob at the time, it is kind of funny. So when Jacob woke up the next morning, he was shocked to find Leah laying next to him. So he confronted Laban and said, "What have you done to me? Didn't I serve you these 7 years for Rachel? Why have you tricked me?" Laban answered, "It's not our custom here to give the younger daughter in marriage before the older daughter is married. Wait until this bridal week of festivities is over, and then I'll give you Rachel. But you must serve me for another 7 years." Again, tricky trickster. So they celebrated, again, the marriage for a week, as was the custom there. And Jacob complied with Laban's request. After he completed the prescribed week of Leah's wedding feast, Laban gave his daughter Rachel to be his wife, and he slept with her. Rachel was his true love, not Leah. Laban assigned Bilhah as his daughter Rachel's servant, and Bilhah means troubled, and we'll see that come up in a bit. And
why do you think Jacob picked 7 years to serve for a wife? He's the one that came up with the wages.
That's true. That's a great question. So I know that 7 is an important number in Jewish tradition. It took God 7 days to create the universe. So
because he named his wages, is what it says.
He did.
Laban said, "Name your wages."
Right. And
I wonder why he picked 7 years.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because he could have just said, "Listen, I already served you for free for a month. How about that? How about we backdate those wages?" But yes, he did. He did choose the 7 years, and
then Laban used the 7 years against him for Rachel to work for Rachel.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting. Rachel means you.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I did.
Remember?
I did write it somewhere. Yeah. Female lamb. Right. Yeah. And again, she was the shepherdess. So this is the first time that we've heard of a woman having that kind of I guess it would be an authority, because she was in charge of the sheep. She was the one that took care of them. But yeah, that's a good question. I would say, yeah, I don't know why he would choose years too, instead of, maybe that's how much value he put on her, that he thought that she was valuable enough to mean that he would work 7 years to earn her favor. So
or was it he's still dealing with guilt, what he did with his brother? He thought he had to work for something,
right? Some kind of penance that he had from before. That could be. But and then he doesn't argue when Laban says, you got to work another 7 years if you want Rachel, which I think that's interesting also.
A lot of work.
It is a lot of work. Yeah.
A lot of work going on.
Well, because he has a whole farm, he's similar to what Abraham has, where he has all the goats and sheep and oxen and all of that. So, and having worked on a farm for the past, I don't know, it's only been like 3 or 4 weeks, but it feels like a lifetime. It's hard work, and at the end of the day, it's exhausting. So, it is. But anyways, he agrees, and Jacob remains there and serves her for another 7 years. Yeah, I'll start this little spot here, because it hasn't said it's going to kick me off yet. So God saw that Leah was unloved, so he opened her womb, but Rachel remained childless. Again, this is another instance of God is the one who controls the procreation of these women. And oftentimes, and we'll touch on this again, it was blamed on the woman when she wasn't able to bear a child. It was the woman's fault, or if the woman would give birth to only female children and not male children, it was always her fault and never the man's fault. Where we know now that not only is it oftentimes the man's infertility, but that the man's sperm is what dictates whether it's a male or female child. Again, going back to Adam and Eve, how customarily Eve was the one blamed for the fall of man, when it clearly states that because of the offense that Adam held in his heart towards God for keeping something from him, that's what caused the fall. It wasn't what Eve did at all. So just bringing that into consideration, remembering that we've seen this happen on both occasions, where these women were not able to conceive, and it wasn't any fault of their own. It wasn't actually any fault of the men either, that God has chosen his time, right? He makes all things perfect in his time, not our time. And it's not anybody's fault or problem that he's the one that chooses, especially when a new soul is birthed. And I believe we are going to stop there, because we are running out of time on the Zoom.